hip-hop musician and DJ Moby sold more than 20 million records, even as the era of file sharing and free downloads was dawning. He's been front row center for that and many other shifts in the biz, and he joins us now for 10 questions on the state of popular music, having just written a terrific memoir called Moby, Porcelain. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Can I start with question one here? If the music industry today were a patient, what bill of health would you give it?
That's such a great question. If the music industry were a patient, I've never worked in an emergency room, but I would say it's not quite critical, but somewhere in like concerned and critical, meaning it could go in many different directions. So I think, how about wait and see?
Wait and see. No, so that's not terminal, though.
Doesn't seem to be terminal because, I mean, regardless of how people make music or consume music, we're always going to be listening to it, you know. So, and that to me is the strength of the music, is not necessarily the business, but more the actual emotional content of the music.
Question two, given technology today, for example, any kid with a Mac and software like GarageBand can make music, is it easier now than ever to make good music?
I think it's easier to make solid B music. You know, in the ye olden days, it was really hard to record music. And now, as you said, anyone with a laptop can make music that's like a solid B and occasionally B+. But unfortunately, a lot of people become complacent and become comfortable making B-level, B-grade music and rarely push themselves into like the A- areas.
Still hard to be great.
There's a lot of very benign mediocrity out there.
Question three, this democratization of skill, good thing or a bad thing for music in general?
It's hard to generalize. I mean, certainly the days of virtuoso musicianship, the days of, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, like the 10,000 hours applied to learning an instrument, I think those days are largely coming to an end. But at the end of the day, it depends on what criteria we use to evaluate music or to judge music. And for me, it's how I respond to it emotionally. And sometimes that means, you know, an orchestra playing Gershwin, and sometimes it's a kid with a laptop, but I can still have a similar emotional reaction.
So much of music today, question four, seems to be me, myself, and I with earbuds in, listening to music on my iPad, a very singular, solitary experience. Has music, in your view, become a less communal experience?
I believe it largely has. I mean, because certainly music has become also much more ubiquitous. You know, when we were growing up, music existed on LPs, and it existed on the radio, sometimes on TV, but that was about it. And now it's with us everywhere, which is wonderful, but it does become less gregarious. I mean, there's also this paradox of people are either listening to music with earbuds or they're in a stadium with 100,000 people. It seems like the middle ground seems to have waned quite a lot.
Question five, your new album, you gave it away for free. How come?
Well, the last record that I made is this 4-hour-long ambient record. And it's very quiet music that I basically made for myself for when I meditate or try to sleep or do yoga. And I gave it away because it's just quiet music that can potentially help people to calm down. And also, there's this odd world in which we live now where people can buy music, or they can stream it, or they can download it for free. And my hope is, and this is sort of selfish on my part, I just want people to sometimes listen to what I've done. Because with 10 billion songs out there, for someone to take time out of their day and listen to something I've made is quite an honor. And as a result, I don't want to impede that process by saying you can only listen to my music if you listen to it here, or only listen to it if you pay for it. Like, I'm just flattered if someone takes the time to listen to what I've done.
In which case, question six, is the focus of the music business today fill a stadium as opposed to make a CD, sell a CD?
For a lot of musicians, for better or worse, sort of see releasing new music as a marketing exercise to help sell tickets. That, I don't judge other people, but that makes me kind of sad, because for me, music is an end unto itself. Like, I don't see music as leading to something better than music. You know, selling tickets is not better than music. Selling records is not better than music. Like, nothing I can buy with the money I make from music will make me as happy or as emotional as listening to the music itself.
I think you've partly answered question 7, but I'll ask it anyway. You really don't appear to like touring anymore. How did you lose your love for that?
I lost my love for touring because it became tautological. It became a needless repetition. And sometimes some repetition is great. Breakfast is a very repetitive meal, and I love breakfast. But touring, like being a middle-aged musician, and the idea of going out and doing the same show every 2 years, if I don't have to do it, I don't want to do it. I'd rather stay home and write books and work on music and be involved in animal activism and go hiking and have friendships and have relationships rather than just do the same tour every 2 years with diminishing results.
In which case, question 8, if you could change one thing about the music biz today, what would it be?
If I could change one thing about the music business today, I would ask people to recognize that music has this inherent magical power, and it doesn't need to be seen as a vehicle leading to something else. Like, I feel like a lot of pop musicians see music as like part of personal brand development that will help them at some point to have a clothing brand. And I feel like music should be an expression of our experience of the human condition. And to me, that's way more valuable than putting your name on a t-shirt.
It's interesting, a little follow-up here, because most people who I've talked to in the music business say if I could wave the magic wand, I'd stop people stealing all our stuff for free.
Oh, I'm all in favor of people listening to music no matter how they're doing it. Like Spotify, Pandora, however people want to listen to music, God bless. I just wish that the music itself was valued more emotionally and that it had more sort of like sincerity and integrity attached to it.
Question 9, you rocketed to music superstardom, if I can put it that way, in the late 1990s and early 2000s. In Canada, we are seeing the likes of, for example, Justin Bieber and Drake, who are a couple of our well-known artists, experiencing that kind of explosive popularity today. How's it different today from the way it might have been at the turn of the century?
I mean, it'd be tricky for me to try and consider myself in the same league as Justin Bieber or Drake, just because they are iconic young pop stars.
Well, as you were 15 years ago.
I wasn't that young. And I don't know, how is it different? I think it's different in that, and one big difference is when we were growing up until quite recently, the focus was the album, you know, and I grew up obsessed with albums and the artists who made albums, and now it's songs. And I have nothing against a good song, but I still love the idea of a musician working hard to craft an emotional, cohesive body of work. And generating the occasional 3.5-minute pop song is fun. You know, it's nice to have things to listen to at a wedding, but I wish that there was a little more focus put on like a very emotional, intense, cohesive album.
I'm going to push this last question a little bit, question 10, insofar as you're from Stratford, Connecticut, Bieber's from Stratford, Ontario, so that means that you are uniquely positioned, I think, to give him some advice. He's had some ups and downs as he's tried to figure out fame. What advice would you give him?
I mean, I can't even imagine, because I didn't have success, like professional success, until I was in my 30s. I can't imagine what is it like, almost neurochemically, like what's the brain of someone like when you've only ever known pop stardom? I mean, because Justin Bieber, I think, became famous when he was...
He's a teenager.
Very young.
Yeah.
So his brain was formed with all that attention. And I don't think he's ever known anything else. So I guess my advice would be, I don't know, enjoy yourself, but just understand that there's a better than likely chance at some point the gravy train stops running. And look at other teen stars and see what they've done wrong and see what they've done right. You know, like with someone like Justin Bieber, it would just be sad if 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you know, he's bitter and incapable of going to the grocery store, you know, and just sitting around like doing whatever and complaining about the current state of pop music. You know, like just go out and learn how to live. And at some point in your life, be open to the idea of being interested in other things. And this might sound very naive of me, but at some point, learn how to be of service. You know, because ultimately, I think having a higher purpose, not just being self-interested, is what leads to lasting happiness.
Because you are a man with broader interest than just music, I'm going to ask a bonus question here.
Okay.
And because you're a former New Yorker, I'm wondering how you are enjoying the presidential campaign of New Yorker Donald Trump against New Yorker Hillary Clinton against New Yorker Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. It reminds me of Philip K. Dick, the science fiction author who wrote about these dystopian totalitarian futures, like I think The Man in the High Castle. And America has become this prescription medication addicted, obese nation of people accidentally living in a Philip K. Dick book. You know, Donald Trump, I think he would be the absolute worst president the United States has ever seen, but it amazes me that anyone takes him seriously. You know, like if you ask someone in the States, if you were to go to them and say, okay, your pipes are broken, would you hire a plumber who has no plumbing experience? They'd say, of course not. And then you will say to them, okay, why would you be interested in hiring a president who has no experience? You know, Donald Trump's only experience is bankrupting companies and self-promoting and running a beauty pageant.
You've asked a good question, and the answer that they would give is, okay, we gave the experienced politicians the job and look where it got us. So we're going to try something else.
Yeah, and I appreciate that to an extent. And I do think it's also odd when politicians have only worked in the realm of politics. Like I think people who have private sector experience and public sector experience tend to make the best leaders because they understand job creation. But I mean, Donald Trump, I don't know anyone who doesn't think he's just an orange buffoon. And it just baffles me.
Had to put the orange in there, right? Okay.
Yeah, that 46% of America at present is willing to hand the nuclear codes to this guy who just bankrupts casinos. You know, it's very, and then the Hillary-Bernie thing is also fascinating, where it's friends of mine on the left, and if Hillary gets the nomination, I will happily support her. If Bernie gets the nomination, I will happily support him. I don't care about these personalities, I care about the issues. You know, I care about climate change and the environment and education and immigration and healthcare and the actual issues and who's going to do the best job working on them. I don't care who the person is. They're politicians. You hire them to do a job. And it's this obsession with the cult of personality, and where you have people on the left in the United States hating each other for supporting Hillary or Bernie. And I'm like, they're just old politicians. Like, who cares? They're neither demons or deities. They're just civil servants. So it's gotten to a weird place. And to be honest with you, when Trump got the nomination, I actually did Google how to apply for Canadian citizenship.
Moby, we'll take you up here anytime.
Okay, thanks.
We're a kinder, gentler country, as you know.
I described, my girlfriend lives in LA and she's never been to Canada. And she said, oh, what's Canada like? And I said, just imagine if the States went to college and read some books. That's Canada. Yeah.
Well, speaking of reading books, people should read this one. Porcelain, your memoir is terrific, and we thank you for sitting here for 10 questions on the state of music with us here on TVO.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.